Welcome to our video. We're going to be talking to you today about fat loss expectations because there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about the rate of fat loss, like what's a successful rate of fat loss.
Yep.
And to be honest, a lot of people's expectation is a lot more unrealistic in regards to the sheer amount of weight that's going to be lost in a given period of time. Like honestly, slow and steady wins the race. It's a very cliche thing to say, but yeah, very important topic because we don't want people being discouraged, and we also don't want people, I guess, doing things in the unhealthy way. So
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky, I guess, thing to talk about when you talk about trying to avoid people getting discouraged from their weight loss journeys. Because on the one hand, if you go too fast, you usually regress and come back up the other way, or it seems like it's not possible just because it's so difficult. Therefore, you're not able to sustain it. But on the other hand, if you go too slow, right, there's a potential that you may be like, this is never going to work. I'm never going to get to my weight loss goal. Like if you have 100 pounds to lose and you're trying to lose a quarter of a pound per week, it's just going to take way too long. So hopefully the kind of examples that we give will be helpful.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then so like we can kind of show an example here of what would be like 1 year of fat loss, give or take. I think it was about 11 months. But I went from about 220 pounds down to about 190, and you kind of see the difference. One thing that I'll point out there, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but I did not lose weight like this all the way down. You know, the weight loss was kind of like this, 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 this. You know what I mean? But it gradually across the year, it went down slowly. But I had diet breaks. I had some. Actually, like during the holidays, during Christmas, I was like, all right, 3 weeks here. I got plenty of time. I'll take 3 weeks and just eat whatever I want, pretty much, with moderation. But, I gained a little bit of weight back, and then I just started cutting down from the new year. So, yeah.
That's an important point to emphasize too, though, is just that progress with not even just fat loss, with more or less anything is rarely going to be perfectly linear either way. There's going to be waves along the way. It's just the way, the nature of things. The nature of things.
I like an analogy to the downsides of losing weight too fast is kind of like cramming for a test.
Yeah,
so if you cram for a test, you might kind of get a quick win, but ultimately you're not going to learn or retain the information, and most likely you're not going to get as good of like grades, right? Similarly, if you try to lose weight too quickly, the results will oftentimes come to loss of muscle mass. It might harm your metabolism, and essentially it doesn't help to build long-term habits. You know what I mean? You're trying to diet down for like 3 weeks before a wedding or something like that is not a great method to, one, look good for that wedding, but also building those habits that you're going to need long term. And another like downside to kind of cramming or trying to lose weight really fast is going to be the weight loss or the fat loss is going to basically be it's going to come right back after the diet ends. So if you don't kind of lay a strong foundation, it's going to be hard for you to maintain fat loss for a long time, or even just like maintenance.
Which, I mean, the goal in the end should be, you shouldn't be trying to lose weight with the thought that you'll probably gain it back afterward. Any goal you have ideally is going to be something you're doing for the long term.
Now, a small amount of weight gain after your diet might be expected. 2, 3, 4, even 5 pounds, just kind of your body leveling out. Maybe a little bit more water retention when you start eating more and things like that. But ultimately, yes, you don't want to gain the weight back to where you started, or ultimately, a lot of times what we even see is people gain the weight back and go up, even heavier than what they started their weight loss diet at. And then, wait a couple years and they try again, crash diet, and the cycle just keeps going. Next thing you know, you're 80 pounds or 100 pounds heavier than when you first initiated your diet in the first place. So now we'll pop this up on the screen, but essentially a good rate of loss is going to be between 0.75% and 1.25% of your body weight. So you take the percentage. That way, I always recommend percentage because I've worked with people that are, I think the lightest person I've worked with is like 88 pounds. The heaviest person that I've worked with was over 500. Now, if you tell each of these individuals to either gain or lose, let's say 2 pounds per week, for the 88-pound individual, if they were to lose 2 pounds a week or gain 2 pounds a week, it's just way too quick. Whereas that 500-pound individual, 2 pounds per week would actually be too slow, ultimately, to achieve like what would be a good actual like sustainable weight loss where they're not discouraged, because there's so much extra, I guess you can say, weight there the percentage would not be that great. And I'm not going to try to do the math in my head, but if you did 1.25% of 500 pounds, it's quite a bit. Maybe you could put it up on the screen.
Sure.
But yeah, and then with that rate of loss, so if you did between 0.75 and 1.25, or even let's just say 1% per week. So like for a 100-pound individual, it's about a pound per week, right, that you're losing. So I would not recommend that you do that for more than 8 weeks without essentially taking a little bit of a diet break. And that could just be bringing your calories up a little bit, maybe reducing training down, something like that, just to stop the dieting from continuing on. Maybe even just a couple meals out where it's like, hey, this week I'm going to eat the same, but I'm going to let myself eat out 3 times or something like that with moderation. But most of the time that does kind of stop the weight loss.
Yeah.
But it's something you can do every couple of weeks or at the end of like 8 weeks of dieting, take a little bit of a break. What have you seen with what kind of like rates of loss as far as like poundages have you seen successful with either yourself or with clients?
Oh my goodness. I feel like, so right now actually I'm working with a new client. She's doing fantastic.
Okay.
And it seems like she was a little bit concerned, which is actually appropriate again that we're doing this topic, is she's like, is 2 pounds a week, is that enough? And it's like, no, that's perfect. So I think typically I am seeing, if it's going to be consistent, it's going to be around a pound to 2 pounds.
Yeah, 1 to 2 pounds.
Again, that's the realistic expectation. That should be what we're striving for. So
yeah, awesome. And then with this is why the percentages work out so good too. But let's take an example of a 150-pound female, but it could be a male as well. The goal is to lose a total of about 11 pounds. You can calculate the weekly weight loss goal by multiplying your body weight. So here we have 150 multiplied by 1.25, right? And that would be 1.87 pounds per week. So essentially the aim or the goal would be between 1.5 to 2 pounds weekly. Now, something to note is that would be basically doable for the whole weight loss duration. But let's just say that it was a 300-pound person that maybe could get down to like 150 to be an ideal body weight. As they got leaner, the calculation would want to be adjusted a little bit, because when you're 300 pounds, you can lose weight faster than when you're, say, like 160.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Again, that's the beauty of the percentage-based goal. Now, with that example, that is the absolute fastest that we would ever recommend. So essentially, 1 to 2 pounds is the fastest that we'd recommend for most people, unless you're maybe, let's say you're like 50% body fat, or you're over maybe 350 pounds.
Yeah.
You could be upwards of 3, even 4 pounds per week.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
So yeah, Tom's example was spot on.
Hey.
Matches up with using the percentage base.
Yes.
So now here's a better rate of loss. This would be more ideal, something that I would recommend for people or my clients. So again, 150-pound individual trying to lose 11 pounds at a slower, safer pace, let's say, right? So to calculate this, same thing, but now we're going to take the body weight times it by 0.5%, so 0.5%, and that's going to give us 0.75, or you could say between like a half to 1 pound per week. So you like that. That's basically what you'd aim for, and that's going to be like ideal. That's kind of what I like to look for. 1 pound per week for a 150-pound person is actually pretty decently quick.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh goodness, yeah.
Now we have a 280-pound individual. This is the fast rate, right? You could essentially lose 3.5 pounds per week, okay? And with that, same calculation. You're just taking the body weight times it by 1.25, you get that. So 3.5 gives you that example. And then a more ideal would be about 1.5 pounds per week for that individual. So ideal rate of loss for a 280-pound person, which, with clientele that we have starting with us, if you're looking at males or even females, it's not a uncommon of a body weight. Maybe more so like 250 for females, 280 for males is something that we see pretty common.
Yes.
So to start them off, we could go, 1 to 2 pounds per week, which is kind of what we've been saying this whole time.
Yeah.
Some lighter individuals might be a little bit less than that. Okay. Anything you got to say on that?
No, I mean, just really stress that. I guess there was something I wanted to say, but just really stress that we are adaptation machines, but these adaptations should be occurring relatively slow in order for us to actually adapt to them, and that's how you get the long-term success.
Yeah.
So again, that's one of the big reasons why, if not the main reason why, you want to take this at a reasonable pace.
Yeah. And another, a sad reality about losing weight is there's going to be plateaus, you know.
Yeah. Again, not linear.
Yeah, it's not going to be linear down. So the goal you set up and like what you're looking for on a weekly basis is seeing those rates of loss that you set yourself to, right? Whether it's fast or slow or kind of in between, you know. The tricky part is when you see stalls, you don't want to like jump to the gun and just lower your calories more or add more cardio, and you should really. I say there's no such thing as a stall unless your body weight hasn't moved for 3 weeks, right? So like if you've stayed exactly the same, or maybe you've even come up like a couple of ounces or something like that, if that's happened for 3 weeks in a row, then yes, your body has adapted enough to the diet that you're currently on, or maybe something changed. Maybe you're moving a little bit less. That's why we're big advocates of step counts, because you know you can do 20 minutes on elliptical, but then you end up sitting the whole rest of the day, as opposed to you didn't do that 20 minutes and then you cleaned your house, did laundry, vacuumed, all that kind of stuff. You actually ended up burning more cleaning your house than you would have in 20 minutes of cardio. That's why step counts are so nice. But that's a big thing to kind of keep note of, is like when you're on this journey, the biggest thing I tell clients a lot of times is, nope, let's keep things where they're at. We're not going to lower calories down. We give it a couple more days and then they start dropping. Whereas like if we, you know, jump the gun and lower those calories down, now you're kind of down regulating that metabolism more, and you run out of runway essentially at the end of the fat loss diet. So
no, I think that point too you made about, I guess, putting too much emphasis on your in-gym time, because the out of the gym time is going to make it, as far as energy expenditure goes. So like you said, like you could come in, do your lift, or come in and do some steady state cardio. But if that's going to be, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, then what are you doing with the rest of your day? Because, you know, you could do all that and then the rest of your day is sedentary. That's not necessarily ideal for weight loss as far as your energy expenditure goes.
Yeah. Now, some of the major downsides of losing weight too fast are going to be increased muscle mass loss.
Yes.
So with like weight loss research that we have on just like starvation diets, no exercising, not moving very much, it's actually shown that in the initial, you'll lose equal amounts, if not more muscle than you lose body fat, which is not great at all.
Not ideal.
Another thing that you'll see, mostly just because like in order to elicit enough of a deficit to lose, you know, say 5 pounds per week as a lighter person, you're going to have to eat so little that you can run into nutritional deficiencies, right? Just not eating enough nutritious food. Slowed metabolism, just because you're kind of like, my metabolism it's dropping down to try to adapt to the caloric intake that you're, you know, eating, or I guess you could say not eating, right?
Sure.
Extreme fatigue. The less you eat, the more tired you're going to be. You can get gallstones if you lose body fat too fast. You don't want that. Hormonal imbalances, mental health struggles, which can make it harder to diet too if you're not feeling good mentally, if you're depressed, stuff like that. It can make it hard to exercise. It can make it hard to eat healthy. You'll get more loose skin at the end of your diet if you lose it super fast, most likely. The collagen in the skin doesn't have time to kind of resynthesize and all that kind of stuff to adapt to what's happening to it. And then rapid weight gain post-diet. So that's what we talked about in the beginning. You can lose 20 pounds on a diet over 8 weeks, but then over 2 weeks, you gain 25 back. You know what I mean? And it's all body fat. Now you're at a state where you have less muscle mass, more body fat. And if you keep doing that, you end up, you know, less muscle mass, more body fat. Less muscle mass, more body fat. It's not a good area to be. So
unfortunately, it is easier to gain the body fat than it is to lose it. And I'd also say it's probably easier to lose muscle mass than it is to put it on.
Potentially. With like no training, extreme dieting, not eating enough protein, all that kind of stuff.
And muscle helps your metabolism and helps so you can burn more calories. So muscle is very important to all this. So strength training, I want to stress that.
So this is kind of, I wasn't planning on talking about this at all, but you know, like there's a lot of talk about muscle loss on a lot of the newer weight loss drugs like Ozempic and things like that. The drugs actually have, as far as what I've seen, they have no mechanism on muscle loss. There's no reason why they should make you lose muscle mass. Most likely the reason why people lose muscle mass is because they can't eat enough protein. They can't eat enough protein, and then they're also losing weight too quickly. They're losing weight quicker than most people would be able to, like no matter how strict or adherent they were to a diet, these individuals are losing weight even faster because the dosages are typically just a little bit too high. It'd be a lot better if they could use that just to kind of lower that food noise down a little bit, like thinking about your next meal, thinking about hunger. But the dosages that insurance companies approve and things like that are just a little bit too high, or even a lot of bit too high. Like if you could do lower dosages, we'd see better outcomes overall and less muscle mass loss. But there's really no mechanism of action that would cause these drugs to make us lose muscle mass, except for it's causing us to eat so little.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
That's the downside. Yeah.
Because when I initially heard about that, I'm like, dang, that really is a stupid side effect. But it's like, no, it's more, like you said, it's just inability to keep up with your main building block of tissue.
Yeah. Protein. If you could do a very small dose, like I talked about, that lowered the food noise down, where you could just not kind of overeat all the time, but you still got in like ample amounts of protein, you're still eating like just a little bit below your baseline to lose some weight, then there'd be no issue at all. You know what I mean? Now, a big thing is like why this is so important too is most people, if we're really being realistic, you're just not going to be like mentally tough enough or adherent enough to any diet or protocol to be able to lose weight faster than what we recommended in this video, right? It's just not going to happen. You know, the faster that you're dieting, the harder it is. And it can get extremely hard. If you're dieting on very low food, it's not uncommon for people to sleepwalk and go into their kitchens and, eat boxes of cereal, dream about food, have kind of like hoarding or like protective behaviors around food, where it's like people walk into the kitchen and they're almost like a dog that starts like attacking the other person.
I was gonna say,
and, this is
resource guarding.
Yeah, this is stuff that we see with individuals that are either going through like eating disorder issues, where they're just starving themselves, or people that are like on the tail end of contest prep. These are things that we've seen where your body fat levels are just so low. Typically, in order to get there, your food is relatively low to your baseline. And those are where we kind of see those issues. But even at heavier body fat or body weights, we can see these issues if people internally are just starving so much. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah. Overall, that would be the big downsides to it. So it's more like, hey, we need to we need to have a sustainable plan to get through this whole journey of weight loss, as opposed to like running out the gates really fast. Right? It's kind of like, think about weight loss as more of a marathon versus a sprint.
Yep. Classic comparison, but it's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah, that's really all we have.
Yes.
Kind of smashes that.
Yes. You don't need to watch any other videos on this topic. This is the last one you need to watch. Got 'em.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for listening. Lose some fat if you need to. Bye-bye.